How's it going, PD team? Feeling much better in 2025. I was sick for a little bit, so I haven't had time to do some content, but I'm ready to rock it. So the first video tutorial we're going to be covering today is going to be Xpresso Programming. This is a visual programming language that makes it so you can write your own custom tools for your clients. It's very useful and relatively easy to pick up and learn. If you have some basic programming language skills, this will be incredibly easy to pick up. So what we're going to be building today is this timeline trigger based visual aid, where we can basically work like you can inside of After Effects. Now, this idea came from user Jordan, where he said that he wanted a tool where he could have in and out points of when a layer's visibility is on and off, just like you can in After Effects. So in After Effects, you have a timeline-based editing system where the layer's visibility is determined by the in and out points, and we wanted that same feature. Well, if you look at the code within After Effects nonlinear editor, you're going to find that it's just a bunch of Excel spreadsheet in and out points for your tags and your timeline. So with that being said, it's just number values. Well, we can make our own custom tag, which we've done here. And if I play this, you can see these layers appear and disappear on a specific time range. So we can apply this tag to any layer or any object and put the in and out points of when we want it to come appear and when we want it to disappear. So we can make a preset out of this, and anytime we need to have a visibility layer automatically without keyframes, we can do so. It's recyclable and easy to make. So this Xpresso tag basically gives us feedback, where you can see it right now. The layers that are visible are the / and the on, and you can see our tag is highlighted in white. Now you can select your own colors for this. So if I play this and update it, and you can see off is now visible and it's white. So the two layers that are off are black. And so we can get direct feedback in the object manager to see which one's visible and which one's not. And we can simply just copy one of these tags to another object, change the input values, and have that next object be affected. So it's recyclable. So let's dive in. Okay, so I've turned off my other layers. So we're just working with this sphere. And the way this works is we're going to apply an Xpresso tag. So we're going to go to Programming. It's off the screen, and click Xpresso. And I've docked my Xpresso tag node editor to the viewport. So yours is probably going to show up just like this, free floating. And to get this, if it's closed, you just double click it. Now the icon itself is this gridded node structure looking icon. You double click it, and then we're going to take it, grab it by the hamburger flyout menu. So you just grab this and dock it right onto the viewport. Now I'm working with one screen because of the lack of limitations with dual screens. But if you do have dual screens, I suggest you not dock it because you won't get feedback, and you won't have, like when we play this back, it doesn't like the viewport editor grouped with the node Xpresso editor for updating. So if I hit play, it won't update the value in the viewport behind it. So kind of a limitation. So if you got dual screens, just bring your Xpresso editor, you click this and click undock and drag it to your other screen. That's how I normally have mine set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag in our Xpresso node here, and we'll click it, and we want to add user data. So we're going to click user data, manage user data, and we get this menu. And the first thing we want to do is we want to add a group, and we're going to just type in /out, hit enter, and that's our group. And then with that in and out selected, it's highlighted yellow. We're going to click add data, and we're going to change this from float to time, and we'll put something like 30 frames, and we'll call this one in, hit enter, and it'll put it in the short name as well. Then we can take this, copy it, and then Command V, copy, paste. We'll change this one to out and set this to something like 60. And those are our default values. Hit OK. And now you can see we have a new tab called in out on our Xpresso tag. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to take this tag, go to my basic, change the icon. So I'll go load preset, and I'll select this clapperboard, double click it, and I'll just change it to white for now. And there you go. So now you can see this tag looks just like this one. And we dragged in the Xpresso node into here. So what we'll do is we'll take our in and out values, and we're going to just drag this into the output, which is the red box, and do the out as well. First, we need to figure out where we are in time. So what we'll do is we're going to right click Xpresso General, and we'll go down here to where there's time. And I like making this a little bit bigger. So, and we need to compare the time to the endpoint. So there's a node that does that. It's called the compare node. So I'm going to right click Xpresso, and it's under logic. You'll see there's a compare node. So new node, Xpresso, logic, compare. Now, what the heck is this thing? Well, if you're familiar with JavaScript or any programming language, they have an if-else statement. And it says, if something meets a certain goal, do this, else do that. This is what the if-else statement looks like. So our compare node is essentially an if-else statement in JavaScript programming. I'm going to just use JavaScript as it's written in JavaScript right here. So you say if the time is less than 30, the time is this node right here, is less than 30, which comes from this endpoint, give us the value of 1 or 0, sorry. So if it's less than 30, it'll give us, this compare node will give us a 0. If it's greater than, it will give us a value of 1. So this compare node basically spits us out a 0 or a 1, meaning it's true or false. So we're going to take our time, plug it into the input, and then say compare. Now, what we're comparing is we're going to change this to time. We're comparing time to time values. And we want to say, if this is less than time that we specify, don't do anything. Okay. Now we're going to take this and duplicate it because we have one other value to do. We're going to also plug in time in our value. So you can see if we go back to this, we're plugging first our time. We're saying it's less than, and then this is the value that we're entering in our Xpresso tag. Okay. Next, what we want to do is we want to merge these because at any point in time, these will either be on or off. They won't be the same value at the same time, so it won't ever add up to more than 1. So what we can do is we need to set this one to greater than, and we need to take this and do a calculate math, and we're going to add these up. So we're essentially just merging. So this one will be 0, or this one will be 1. Or this one will be 1 and this will be 0, okay? They'll never be both true at the same time, the way it's set up. As long as the user does not put 30 and 30 here, or like two values that are the same, which is fine. So we're merging these two together. Now, I'm gonna go back here to our circle dot here that we have. And what we wanna do is we want to affect, in the basic tab, this on-off default. You can see when I have it on or default, it's the same. But when it's on, it's set to green, and off, it's set to red. And we're going to affect both of these because we want the traffic lights to be both red. So I'll set this default. We need to figure out what these values are because they don't actually make sense. But we're going to just go with it with what we have now. So we're going to go back to our node editor, drag our sphere in, and I like making this bigger. And we're going to select our sphere and we're going to drag in viewport visibility in the input, which is the blue box. And we're going to just drag this in. And we'll go back to our viewport and we're going to click back and hit play. And then you'll see right at 60, it turns off, and at 30, it turns on. Now, this is fine, but you can see when I let go here at frame 22, the traffic lights are red, which is what we want. But then when we go to 37, our traffic lights are green. And this, if you want to keep it super simple, will work, but it's forcing it to be on. So if I throw this in a null group and turn the null group off, this will still be visible. I prefer default. So to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our node editor, move this over, and let's figure out what's actually happening here. So I'm going to disconnect this real quick just to check and show you what's going on here. I'm going to drag my sphere in here, go to our default visibility here, and I'm going to add a Xpresso general result, drag it in, and make sure the calculate animation refresh is on. We'll have to set this to view. Let me undock this. Doesn't like doing the viewport playback. So you can see here, when it's on default, it's set to 2. On is set to 0, and off is set to 1. So really what we need is 1 and 2. Right now we're reading 1, we're going to 2 and to 1. So we can remap this. So we want our value to be 2 and 1, 1 and 2, to get the off and default. So to fix that, what we can do is we can add a calculate range mapper. And now what we can do is we can say our input lower is 1 and our input upper is set to 2, because right now this is spitting us out 0 and 1. So we're just shifting it over by one value. So we'll drag this in and you're going to see a new problem arise. It's easily fixable. So now if I go back to frame 0, it does the opposite. So to fix that, we just click this reverse. And now we have the same thing, but correct. So you can see our traffic lights are red. And when it hits 30, it goes to default and then off on frame 60. And we can test this by selecting this and we can say turn off at frame 55, come on at frame 20, just to check. You can see right at 20 turns on and then 55 it turns off. Now let's say you want, when you put 55, you want it to be off at 55, not on and then off at 56. The way you fix that is we're going to go to our off here and we're going to say greater than or equal to. And what that will do is right when it goes to 55, that value we plugged in, it's off. So now this is actually technically correct. It's in on frame 20 and out at 55. So I'll put it back to 60 and 30. So now you can see when I play it, it turns on at frame 30 and turns off at frame 60. So now this is correct. Now, the next layer of functionality I'd like to add is I want this Xpresso to control the tag color because I want visual feedback of when the layer's on and off. And that's actually quite simple, but requires a new node that we have not discussed yet, a new JavaScript type node. So that node is basically like a switch node. And this is a switch node. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to get a value of either 1 or 0. So you write switch, and then this is the number that gets plugged in. So we're going to either have 0 or 1. And depending on what we put in here, you're going to have this case. Is it going to be this? It's going to output this value. In this case, the output's going to be a color, red or green. Now, I wanted to prove that this is a switch node because I'm going to show you that you can actually add multiple outputs. So you could have red, green, or blue, depending on the number that's selected here. So if I put 3 here, it'll select case Z because this is X is 0, 1, and 2, which is the third switch. Now, with switch statements, something that I deleted is not in Xpresso Programming is you usually want to have a default value. So you'd write in here below it default. So if none of these are true, like if I select 4, well, there's not 4 cases to go through, there's only 3. It'll default to a certain value, which could be red or black or something like that. But that's the switch statement. And that switch statement is called a condition node. So I'm going to right click here, go to Xpresso, under logic, there's one called condition. So we did compare last time, which is an if else statement and a condition. Now, this condition can also work like a compare node if your input is just either 0 or 1. So you can see here's our switch, which is that number that I was telling you. And you notice it only goes to one value. It's either 0 or 1. But what we can do is we can click here and add another input, and now we have 3 values, so this will go to 2. Okay, right click, delete port. So where are we getting this switch number? Well, we're getting it from here. This is 0 and 1. So there's our switch. Now what we need to put in is the input, which is going to be the colors that we want this to be. And what we can do is we can go to Xpresso and we can do a constant. And a constant is just a value that does not change. So that's like a let. So we'll go here and select color, and I'll leave this first one black, plug it in, and I'll make my second one here, and I'll make it white. And then what we can do is we can take our tag here, drag it in, select it, go to our basic tag, and then we're going to go to the basic tag. You have to double click it, and you're going to get this icon here, and you can see here's this color. So if I change the color of the tag to red, you'll see it changes it to red. So I'll leave it red for now so we can make sure it feeds back. We're going to drag in the node here, and then we're going to select output. So now, depending on what we select here, the outputs of these will give us this 0 or 1. It's going to use that and switch it depending on that value. It's either 0 or 1 and give us a color. So let's go back to our viewport and try it out. Now you can see what's happening here. It's actually the opposite. So to fix that, we're going to just double click, and I'll just switch these nodes here. So now it's black when it's off, hits 30, turns white. That's it for this tutorial. But I wanted to wrap it up with making this reusable. So what you can do is you can go to your object manager here and click the little tray, your asset browser, and click the tab here, and it gives you this menu here. And what you can do is you can right click, say new category, call this like tools. And then what you can do is you can take this sphere, drag it in, call this in out, hit okay. And now you have this Xpresso tool where you just drag it in. And then if you want to add it to some text, you just drag this onto itself. Now this will not work because we forgot one last thing. And that is, here's the problem. We have not made this reusable because of one simple thing that we need to fix. And that is, this is a absolute reference to this sphere. So if it's not called sphere and it's not the same asset, it will not work. So if I wanted to make another text object here or a cube here and drag this up, it's not going to work because it's expecting a sphere. So the way around this is, to make this reusable, is we need to select this here, go to our node and change it from absolute reference to relative reference, and make sure the path is blank, and it will select whatever this tag is applied to. Okay, so before you go adding it and dragging it into your editor here, your asset manager, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Yes, I want to delete it. There we go. And now this is reusable. So it says sphere. So if I go in here and I add a cube and drag this on, you can see now it switches to cube. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Thanks so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more content. Thanks for your support.